Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 2 of the Meng 1/35th scale Jagdpanther G1. So in the last video I did a quick intro, showed what was in the box and all that kind of stuff. So today we're actually going to get started and build the kit. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm doing step by step as I normally do, but what I'm going to also do is where there's multiple things being built repeatedly, like wheels, tracks, anything like that. I'll demonstrate one or two of them, and then I'll do the rest off camera so as not to take up a lot of time. So let's get cracking on this. All right, and as always, I'll make commentary that some of you have heard a ton of times, but might be helpful for beginners or people new to the channel or whatever. So I'll describe what I'm doing a few times, and then I'll stop. But anyway, first thing we need to do is start assembling the wheels. So we've got F4, F2, and a poly cap to do, and it says 8 of those. So let me cut those parts off. So we've got F4 and F2. Oh, that's nice. They got them right across from each other. So let's do the ones off of this particular sprue. Now, the cutters I'm using here are the Tamiya NY2, I think. But as you can see, they're really sharp and pointy and have thin blades. I generally use it only to cut parts from the sprue, or runner if you prefer. Some people call it a runner. I don't use it for heavy cutting because I don't want to dull them. And I'll show you why I like these things, for those of you not familiar with the channel. So as you can see, I've got all those cut off there. And the thing I like about them is you can get real close and make a real clean cut. And if you're really careful, sometimes you can totally eliminate the need, or very close to it, eliminate the need for any sanding or any cleanup. Now, these are really narrow, so I'm not able to do that, so I am going to have to sand them. But I just cut them as close as possible to minimize the amount of work that needs to be done. Just like that. Alright, so I got all those little nubs from the sprue gates cut off. So the next thing I need to do is sand these the little remnant off. And I'm just going to be real easy with it. And I want to pay attention and not make a flat spot. So I just sand a little bit like that till I can't feel it anymore. I generally use my fingernail and just rub along there, make sure there's no little bump or anything. So once I do that, then I get some sandpaper. Just like this here. I got it at my local hobby store, or a hobby retailer actually, big box, Hobby Lobby. And I just pick some. Let's see what grit we got here. That's 400. This is 320. That might be a little coarse. So then what I do is, because of the way these things are molded, you might not be able to see it, but there is a little bit of a ridge there, a mold seam line, because that's where the molds come together. At this point here and this point here. So once it's painted and weathered, you would see that little ridge, so you want to remove that. And because it's so small and fine, it's actually quite easy you can either run it like that and it'll just knock that edge right off. I just kind of spin it as I go. And it removes that sharp edge because you don't want that sharp edge on there. Now the nice thing is that that sharp edge is actually on the back side. Oh no, it's on the front side. Yeah. So yeah, you definitely want to get that off of there. Now you could use a sanding stick, but you risk creating a flat spot. You can also use a sponge type sander like this. As long as it's coarse enough. Mine are pretty fine. But that just helps knock that edge down to where the rubber portion looks like it should. So on this wheel, it's on the back edge. But on this one, it is on the front edge. So it's just something to look for. And you want to do that just to make sure that the that sharp, unrealistic edge is not there. That the edge of that rubber portion needs to be, you know, somewhat rounded. Not too much, but enough. So I'll continue working on all these, and then we'll come back and take a look at what's going on. All right, so I've got this first batch cleaned up. So now I need some these here. Polycaps. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And they work real simply. They go inside of here. And then these glue together like that. These are the inner ones, so they're, you know, bunched together. So I'm sure you want to kind of be careful and not get the not get any glue on that polycap. I don't think it would stick, but it's probably better if you don't. But it just goes together like that. So I think the way I'm going to approach this one is I'm going to use, now there's something that's interesting and kind of cool, I guess, but the inside of these rims are detailed, even though you don't see them. But that's cool because that's a good thing. So for this, I'm going to be using my thicker cement just because I generally use tomato extra thin, but for some things I like this. It's a little bit thicker, gives you a little bit more time to work, and it has its place. So now there's a little bit of flash on there, but I'm not too concerned about it since it's on the inside, so I'm just going to do it like that. And then same thing, a little bit of cement, 3 points around there should be good. Whoops. And voila. Alright, so all the wheels, road wheels, are done. So now I need to do the drive sprockets and the idlers. So let's start with the drive sprockets, which is F21, 22, and 37. So let's get those. And I'll do, I'll go ahead and, let's see, yeah. So we got 21. 22. I don't know if I can get the cutter in there. Let's see, and 37, which is over here. So I've got those, and then I need poly cap. So there's the 4 elements. Now here's something interesting to note on this kit. They've chosen to have the sprue gate on the side of one of the teeth, which makes for quick and easy cleanup. There's some companies that the sprue gate will be down inside of here or on the tip of the sprocket tooth, and that's okay, you know, being on the tip of the tooth, but sometimes you know, it's easy to cut too far and make a short tooth, or if it's a more rounded tooth or has like pointy detail, like say the sprocket on a Sherman, you risk damaging that. This on the side seems to be a pretty good idea. It's in a unobtrusive spot there, and it's a nice flat surface. So that's a pretty good choice on their part, I would say. So I'll just trim it off. Then once I get it trimmed off, I'll check it for any mold seam lines. See if I need to scrape those, but then I'll do the this cap here. Now, one thing I like to do on rounded items is I like to cut it at an angle. And then trim off the little extra piece. And it kind of helps prevent a flat spot. Doesn't always work, but it works pretty good. Just kind of knock down that sharp edge around the edge from the molding process. Like that. While I'm thinking of it, one of my viewers brought this to my attention. Be kind of nice to be zoomed in to see what's going on. So that's what I did. So hopefully I won't get out of frame. Alright, so let's check this and see. Doesn't look like there's too much in the way of a seam line there. There's a little bit, so I'm going to go through with my hobby knife here and just make sure it's all scraped smooth. One thing I want to make note of when using a knife to scrape stuff smooth, you always want to have it tilted this way for when you're scraping. If it's vertical or even slightly that way, you really run the risk of making a big gouge in the plastic, and you definitely don't want that. And in looking closer, there is a little tiny bit of a mold seam line here, so it's always best to remove that, because once the weathering process starts, painting and weathering, that's when stuff like that shows up. It may look like it's very minimal, like you can barely see it or even feel it, but once you start throwing paint and weathering and stuff like that, then you get into problems, and you can see it. Even decals not properly done can screw up a weathering job, as is evidenced on one of my last projects. Once that's done, then just take the old poly cap, and let's see, this is directional. There's a pin there and a slot there, so you want to make sure that's lined up. And then I'm going to use the old to be extra thin. Put it in a couple of spots around the inside. Squish it together. Put some in each one of those spoke-like things. Like that. That should fill in any gaps. Not that you're going to see them, but it will help fill them in. And then this piece here goes there. I think for this one I'm going to use my quick setting. Before I do that, make sure that's not touching. I could use, I think I will. I think for this, I'll use this glue. Just like that. So now I need parts F19, 224s, 27, and a poly cap for the idler. So here's the 224s. Whoa. And 27. So on this one, this is one of those sprue gate situations where it's connected underneath, so you minimize the possibility of screwing up detail on the top or on the exposed surface. You just cut it like that and viola, there you go. Still possible, but much less likely. So you just trim those off. No sanding needed in this case. A little bit of touch up on this one. And then these here, these you got to be careful with because these are going to be exposed, and this sprue gate is just a little bit on the angle, the bevel on this outer portion, this ring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that at an angle like that. Because if you cut it this way, you could risk making a divot in this thin outer edge here. and that would not be a good thing. And then gently sand it. Try and maintain the angle of that bevel. Just sand it like that. Vertical on the side. Like that. Then we can glue it all together. So we need another poly cap. Like that. Kind of weird, they don't have any locating pins on this one, so this is one you have to pay attention and make sure you get the everything lined up properly. Because these little raised portions there line up with this kind of cast in spoke looking thing, like those technical terms I use, spoke looking thing. Okay, so that's good. And then these, there's little notches there that these drop into like that. I think what I'll do is I'll get those from the back side like that. Tack that one in place. That one. Then just go around the outside edge. Make sure they're all pressed in place really well there. Same thing on this side. This is one of those parts that supposedly is incorrect for this particular version of the Jagdpanther. It's supposed to be a larger diameter idler that I guess was supposed to shed mud a little bit better or something. I don't know, but this is one of those cases where the kit part is going to do just fine. I didn't even know there was different size idlers until I started researching this kit. All right, so there's that. All right, so all the wheels and stuff are done. The road wheels, drive sprockets, and idlers. So for safekeeping, I'm going to drop them in my handy dandy smallish parts container here for safekeeping while I work on the other stuff. All right, with that, I am done with step one. So now I'm going to move on to step two, which is the lower hull and these four pieces here. So let's see, we've got part 1, A1. And then A2 and 3. And let's see, 4, A4, that's funny, it doesn't even show the other one in the instructions. Isn't that funny? So we got A4, I mean it's in the instructions, it's just not labeled, and 39. So we jump from 4 to 39. And last but not least, we have 2 A22s, which are these stiffening parts here. Structural parts. So there we go. So I'm doing the same thing on these that I do on everything else. Cut them as close as possible, sand them if needed. So I'm going to get these cleaned up. Alright, so let's take a look at what we got here. So these parts fit here, and apparently it doesn't matter which way they go. They're identical either way. So we got that. Then we turn it the right direction first. That all fits together like that. So that is pretty clever. You've got this part here that fits here with a stop. These side pieces fit in here. And then there's a little tab and slot in the back. So that is pretty groovy. So before I get too far with that though, these have to be glued in first, and they are directional. And it looks like you'd be hard pressed to mess it up because there are tabs there and slots there, so it'll only fit one direction. And it's kind of cool because the front fits right there like that, so that's kind of cool. Kind of difficult to mess it up, so I'm going to glue these in first using the old, to me, extra thin, and I'll use my quick setting for this just because I can. Just like that. Make sure it's pressed down really good. Put a little bit back here, like that. Now, as you can see, there's other little mounting points and stuff like that on the inside here. And I think that is for, Meng makes an extra, like an accessory kit where you can actually do the torsion bars and all that stuff for the suspension, which would be cool if you're doing like a diorama scene, I guess, and you wanted the suspension to be sprung somewhat. But I'm not doing that, so okay, and then this one goes up here like this. Again, there's some pretty nice contact points for the cement. get in there and do its job. Just a quick side note here, this is the first Meng kit I've ever built, so this is kind of cool. I'm getting to see how these go together. Alright, so there's that. So those are glued in place. So next, I can put these back in. I don't think I'm going to glue those quite yet. So this piece goes here like that. I really like the way that goes together. It's really kind of cool. It's pretty positive fit there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I think, so I'm just going to put these in place, and then that's kind of lined up like that. I'm going to go ahead and glue these parts in here. Let them set up. So that's one less thing that's jiggling around as I'm trying to build it. Make sure they're pressed down in there. Like that. Let that set up for a minute. Alright, with those firmly cemented in place, now I can do the sides. So let's start with this one over here. And I have to say that is kind of cool. They have molded on the side here, on this side plate, is kind of a molded in weld bead. And the nice thing is it matches up perfectly. There's no gap, so that's really cool. So I'm going to start with the front on this side here. Whoops. And I think I'm going to use just the regular extra thin. That. Some on the sides here, some in there, side there. Any of these joints around here, let's see, in there. And then on the bottom there, make sure that's pulled in tight and bottomed out. And so you get a nice solid connection. So I'll do the same thing on this other side here. Let's see how it looks. All right, and with both sides glued in, it's looking pretty dandy. The seams right there look really good. No gaps, no nothing. So far, so good. All right, so now it's on to step 3. And here's where you need to pay attention as to which version you are building. So in my case, I'm doing 1. So I need to drill some 0.7 millimeter holes in this back plate, the rear plate of the hull. So let me get this cut off of here and cleaned up. So the holes I need to drill are this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and these four. Now it shows that these are 0.7 millimeter. This one 0.7 millimeter, and these 0.9 millimeters. So I need to find a bit that fits that. So I'll go with my and these are numbered bits, so I just kind of eyeball them. Too big for that. That one looks good for those. Get the right mandrel or chuck out here. Whoops. Make sure it doesn't fall down in there. Chuck it up and begin. Alright, once those are all drilled out, then I'll just use my hobby knife here and kind of scrape clean the plastic that was left after it punched through. Trying not to gouge the plastic and the subtle rolled armor texture. Now I suspect that this one here that also called for 0.7 millimeter will have to be drilled out a little bit more, because the pilot indentation was the same size as these, but we'll see. And it'll be easy. I can just do it from the outside with my knife. So anyway, back plate's done. It's ready to be glued onto the hull. So let's see how that fits. Nice snug fit. Got some simulated weld beads again, so that should fit on there nicely. Yep. So I'll use to be extra thin again. Do one side at a time. Make sure it's pressed on there really tight. And if you do it right, then the glue will really bond that weld seam, so it melts together really well, kind of like a weld. So we'll do the same thing on the other side, and voila, there's that. So the next thing it calls for is Let's go ahead and glue this A21 on the bottom. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut all these parts off and have them ready to go. Alright, so ready to glue all this stuff together. So the first thing I want to do is parts D7 and D14, which are these, and get these together. And this is one of those things where you need to kind of pay attention, because you have similar items that go on each side, but they're numbered differently. So for this side, we got D7 and D14. The other side will be D6 and D13. So that's something to watch for. So anyway, this goes right there like that, and it's really precise fit. I'll use my quick setting for this. Turn that around the correct direction. Almost glued it the wrong way. Whoops. That's supposed to be level. Okay, let's try this again. You want the pins protruding. And make sure that it's flat on this bottom edge here. Okay, so we got that. Then these parts here. There's two little like reinforcing pieces on the top. And then this curved part goes towards the top, and it just fits together. There's a tab here that serves as a stop that fits on inside of that there, so you just want to make sure that it is slid up all the way, bottomed out. Like that. So there's that. So then we have, again, this is another one of those. A7 goes on this side, A8 goes on the opposite side. F12 is going to be the same for both. And it's just got a little pin and a hole right there where it fits. There's a little piece of flash that doesn't really need to be removed, but I'll do it anyway, because I'm just, you know, that kind of dude. Hold that in place. Drop the cement, just make sure it's level. Make sure it's parallel to the flat side there and there. So we'll set that aside and let that glue dry up for a minute. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and glue this on the bottom here. And I'll glue it from the inside. Like that. Then we have the idler axle. There's a keyway in there and a slot so it fits together. Just bottom that out. I'm going to glue that one from the inside as well since it's exposed. that's bottomed out. Then we have A45, which has a couple of holes and a pin. So what I'm going to do with that one, use this, I can do that one from the inside as well. That way I won't mar up the outside. So it's a pretty snug fit. So I'll get that in there like that. And then a little bit of cement there and there. Okay. Then we have two parts D12. So the springs face the bottom. Spring detail faces the bottom. So that goes like, there's a tab there and a slot where it fits together. And I will glue that one from the inside. And then this one, same thing, spring detail down. Oh, crikey. Tab and a slot, like that. All right, then next we want to do A23. And the way that one works, there's a hole there, pin there, and then that flange where the torsion bar suspension part goes in fits in the hole on this. So I think I'll hit that one from the back side here. Like that. Okay, then we have this sub-assembly here. Goes here with the springs facing the bottom of the hull. And that is another one we can glue from the back side. Let me get a better grip here. Because capillary action will pull that glue through the pins to the back of the piece. So we got that there. So being the knothead that I am, I misread this deal here. These two parts here, here and here, it's an either or situation. You use this one or this one. Now fortunately, I think I chose the correct one here. So that's an extra part. So last thing will be the final drive housing. That fits right there like that. So I think for this one, I'm going to use my other cement, my thicker cement. And it's a really snug fit, so this will probably be enough right here, but I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit Got a few key points here. I don't want it to come oozing out, but I want to make sure it's in place good. And that goes there. Whoa. Like that. Just make sure you get that pin and hole lined up, because that's what I almost did, is I almost missed it. All right, so there's that. So all I need to do now is cut the parts for the other side. Okay, so all those details are on both sides, so that finishes up step 3. So I think with the completion of step 3, I'm going to end this video here so it doesn't get over long. So next time when I come back for part 3, we'll start on step 4, which is assembling all of the torsion bar, the suspension arms, and then just move on from there, finishing up the hull hopefully. So that's that. So that's it for now. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, hints, tips, name calling, any of that kind of stuff, just put them in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. So until next time, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you all later.